Good afternoon. My name is Ken Bryan, County Commissioner for St. Johns County, 5th District. I was elected to Commissioner in 2008, and since then I've been working very hard to ensure that I fulfill my obligations and my oath to serve the constituents of St. Johns County. We've started a lot of initiatives, and I would like to have an opportunity to be able to finish those initiatives. As far as my background, I have a bachelor's and a master's degree, as well as formal training from various universities, to include the Naval Postgraduate School, the Federal Executive Institute, and the George Washington University Management School. The important thing to remember, though, is that the experience that I have right now has been based on the last 3.5 years of working as a commissioner. In addition to working my regular commissioner duties, I'm actually right now the president-elect of the Florida Association of Counties Trust. I'm the vice president of the Northeast Florida Regional Council. I'm also the chairman of the Strategic Policy and Planning Committee for the Northeast Florida Regional Council. In addition to that, I'm the liaison for the City of St. Augustine Beach, and also serve on numerous boards to include the Health Leadership Council, the NER, or the GTM NER, as well as many other committees. So the job that I have is a full-time job, and that's what I do. I dedicated my job to full-time, and that's what I'll do for the next term. And I look forward to being able to serve the constituents of St. Johns County for another 4 years.
Okay, well, I'll start with this question because every person who's a challenger to the commissioners is saying that this is a galvanizing issue for them. And that issue is the decision that was made by the commission unanimously to increase the millage rate, which they're calling a tax increase. So I'd like you, sir, to explain why you voted the way you did, and if you see that as a tax increase or not.
I don't really see it as a tax increase, because we looked at that as when we looked at the devaluation in property taxes, the property values that were going down, and the adjustment that was being made with the taxes that individuals were going to receive, we basically didn't see that was going to be a tax increase. So what we ended up with was a 0.59 millage increase, which equated to really a blimp on the radar screen for many folks. I know these are tough times, but our first obligation, my first obligation as a commissioner, is the safety, health, and welfare of the constituents of St. Johns County. And when we looked at it, and we studied this very hard, I rode with the firefighters and the deputy sheriffs and all, and I talked to many of them as to what the requirements were that they needed in order to be able to respond and be safe. And I think it's unacceptable when a police officer or a deputy sheriff is out in the Hastings area somewhere and he's trying to get a signal in order to get back up and he can't get it and someone's life is at stake. In addition to that, we had to also make sure that we had funding for the firefighters. First responders are utmost to our particular safety here in Florida. We're hurricane season, hurricane county, hurricane state, and we have to be able to respond. When anyone in St. Johns County dials 911 right now, they're assured that someone's going to show up. And I wanted to make sure that those particular assurances were still in place. So I don't make any apologies for the slight increase in the millage. I don't consider it to be a tax. And even though I'm not a taxing person myself, I too have to pay these taxes, a substantial amount of taxes, to be honest. But the first and foremost thing that I have to keep in mind is safety, health, and welfare. And that's what I've always done, and that's why I continue to support the decision that I made.
Okay, just for clarification, did the millage increase, was it offset by the decrease in property values? In other words, is the average person going to end up paying more in county taxes with this millage increase, or will the property value decrease be such that even with the millage increase, their share for county taxes would go down?
Most of the people, there were a couple of people that I talked to that did actually see an increase in their property taxes, and those were individuals that were still caught in the Save Our Homes program. But overall, everyone else I talked to, and I have 4 properties, and all of my property taxes went down. And I talked to my neighbors and everyone else, and they said their taxes went down as well. So when we look at the devaluation that occurred and the taxes that went down, I know some folks are trying to say that that was a tax increase regardless. The fact of the matter is, it was very, very small millage increase. It was a very, very small increase to the average person that did see an increase, and I think it was well worth the small amount that they had to pay to ensure that they had the safety issues that we're talking about right now. If a hurricane is to come through right now, we're rest assured that we're going to have these particular things taken care of. In addition to that, this past Tuesday, one of the things we announced is that the towers that we're now erecting, we're actually going to see a return on investment. So after about 20 years, not only are we going to see a payback on the rental of the space to AT&T, Verizon, and other carriers, we're actually going to be able to see a revenue coming in. So this wasn't initially what we started out to do, but what we're seeing now is that there's actually going to be revenue generated as a result of the hardened towers that we're putting up.
Okay. The second common complaint among the challengers is that the county commissioners are rubber stamped for Mr. Wanchek, the county administrator, and that he runs the show and not the commissioners. I'd like to get your response to that, sir.
Well, I mean, the perception could very well be by individuals that are not quite familiar with the way that the government works, that the county commissioners do rubber stamp everything. But the fact is that we're legislators, we're policymakers, and because of the sunshine, individuals don't understand that we actually have to operate in the sunshine. We can't talk to each other, so we have an administrator that actually takes the direction from the commissioners themselves. I, for one, and I think all my other commissioners as well, we get briefed on a bi-weekly basis. Every 2 weeks, every 2 Mondays, I'm actually briefed by not only my county administrator, but the department heads on what's going on, what are the top issues, what are they recommending, and then I make some decisions and I make recommendations based on what's going on around the county. That also gives me an opportunity because I'm out there a lot. People tell me they see me out there a lot, and I'm from one end of the county to the other. And when I have observations, that gives me an opportunity to address those issues with our county administrator as well. But as far as county commissioners rubber stamping everything that the county administrator does, I don't think that's true. I know it's not true.
Okay, and the last concern about you before we get into the general topics, that your challengers have said that they are real Republicans. The clear implication is that you're not, and that they keep saying that you're just a Democrat who converted to become a Republican, but you're not a real Republican. How do you respond to that, sir?
Well, the thing is, the truth of the fact is, my record speaks for itself. When you look at my record, and I can show it to anyone if they want to come to the county, I pulled up the record to show the voting record of all the county commissioners. And over the last 3.5 years, I voted right along with my Republican, conservative counterparts. In some cases, I voted nay, which basically equates to me being more conservative than some of my other commissioners. So as far as the conservatism of being a true Republican, I really don't think it matters at this level. What really matters is how you're doing your job and how you're working for the constituents of the county. When I pick up the phone, when someone calls, I don't ask, are you a Republican, are you a Democrat, or independent? I basically respond. It doesn't matter if they're in Hastings or if they're in Ponte Vedra. We respond to those individuals. So as far as the candidates, I think that the only reason that they're using that is because we're doing so well in the county, they don't really have a platform. So that's the only thing they can use, is the fact that I used to be of another party affiliation. But there are a number of other individuals that used to do the same thing. Again, the bottom line is my record speaks for itself, and I would challenge anyone to look at my record.
Okay, let's talk about jobs. You've heard this a million times in every forum you've been on. Everybody and his grandmother wants to create more jobs in the county. Let's talk about what I know that the county has a track record. I'd like you guys to talk about what you would hope to do in the next 4 years to address the issue of creating not just jobs in the county, well-paying jobs in the county.
Okay, I'm very proud to say that we're already on our way to doing that. The way the government works, it's not that fast, and that's very frustrating to a lot of folks. So it's taken 2.5 to 3 years for us to actually be able to build the base in order to be able to attract businesses and commercial businesses and good paying jobs to the county. What's happening right now is that you're starting to see the fruits of our work, because within the last 8 to 10 months, we've actually introduced, I think, 8 or 9 new companies to St. Johns County. These are good paying jobs. 2G Synergy, the average salary is going to be around $40,000. I introduced a small business development center to St. Johns County the first year I was a commissioner. No one had ever heard of it. But I brought in the small business development center, and as a result, 44, probably 45 new small businesses have actually started up. Another 40 small businesses have been able to stay in business because of the counseling they get from our small business development specialists. This year, Our small business development specialist received the award during Small Business Week up in Jacksonville. One of our small businesses, small women-owned businesses, received the top award during Small Business Week for the entire region. So we're generating jobs. It's just that I can understand the frustration of people, but we're starting to see the results of what's happening right now. Jacksonville Medical Center, they're under construction right now. We just had a groundbreaking this morning for the, I know people said, well, it's a Dunkin' Donut, it's another fast food shop. It's going to generate 24 jobs. The Lowe's Improvement, that's coming in within the next year and a half, 120 jobs. Volano Beach Publix, we introduced that. They're now up and running, as well as the Carlisle Interconnect off of 16 in the Agricultural Center. Because of the way that we are now working with businesses in general, we actually received an award from the Builders Council for our expertise and our, I guess you could say, business-friendly type attitude of working with businesses and starting companies up. B&B Trailers, it's a small company, but it's generating about 6 or 8 jobs as well. We have another project that we're working on right now called Project Liquid. Those are high-tech companies as well, where it's actually information technology. And I think it's great to work on bringing jobs into the county, but what a lot of folks aren't really talking about is whether or not we're going to have the staff here in order to fill those jobs, because we have to make sure we're growing our own here in the county. It's great to bring all these companies in, but when I talk to companies, the first thing they want to know is, do you have the resources for us to hire within your area? So, we have to be careful
By that
about
you mean the talented workforce?
the talented workforce.
Okay.
So, one of the things I've been doing is working with, I go to every single graduation for the First Coast Technical College. And I was very happy to see that they brought in the aircraft airframe maintenance type program in there now, so that they can work with Northrop Grumman. We have another company that I can't even talk about. It's an airframe company that we're talking about bringing here in the county. Right now we have 13 companies in the pipeline. And that's the reason we brought Melissa Glasgow on as the Economic Development Director. And last Tuesday, we actually established an Economic Development Department so that she can work primarily on bringing new companies to St. Johns County, and particularly high-paying jobs. And like I said, things don't happen overnight. It's taken us a while to get here. So that's what's happening right now, is you're starting to see the fruits of our labor, because we've worked very hard to put in a fast-track program at our planning and development and permitting office. For example, in March, we had over 630, I think, building permits. And I go to a lot of different meetings across the state. And other counties are saying, what are you guys doing in St. Johns County, because you're really rolling. We'd like to follow your model, because that's what we're doing. We're open for business, and we got the message out there, and that's what we're seeing. And over the next 4 years, you're going to see a lot more. We're probably double what we're having right now.
At least one of your opponents and also opponents in the races involving Mrs. Stevenson and the open seat in District 3, the candidates are all saying we're not business friendly. It's a morass to get a permit through St. Johns County, and it just takes a long time, and the county's not open for business. It's business unfriendly.
Well, I'd argue, I would challenge that any time. I would be happy to take anyone through any of our departments right now. Howard White, I talked to a lot of folks, and he's in charge of our building department, and I've talked to a lot of folks, and they said that is the top-notch office or department that we have. Howard has a fast-track program, and I've actually sent folks over there on my own, not knowing who they were. I said, I'd like for you to go over to the building department and apply for a permit. Then come back and tell me what difficulties you had and what kind of recommendations that you had. So as a result, we've been able to make improvements in that area. Certainly there probably is still a couple other areas that we can work on, but as far as not being business friendly, that's simply not true. And the Builders Association would not have given St. Johns County an award for being business friendly if that was in fact true. I think it's just merely, these are campaign, these are politics. And it's easy to say that we're not business friendly when you don't know what's really going on. But I think we're wide open for business. And the folks up at the Dunkin' Donut place today, when we had a groundbreaking up there, they had nothing but compliments for us. They said, you guys are fantastic. They said, we went through the entire building process. They said the only glitches we ran into was with the state. So we are open for business, and it's starting to show.
Okay, you probably heard about the recession and the declining revenues. How much longer do you have before you take your reserves down to where the minimums the state requires?
I'd say it's probably within the next 3 to 5 years we'd be able to bring it down. Here again, I don't make any apologies for the reserves, because if we did not have the reserves that we build up right now, we would be faced with some of the other problems that other counties are faced with right now, and that's basically having to raise taxes and having to cut services. We were able to build our reserves up, and that's essentially what we're living off now in order to prevent taxes from being increased, and also making sure that we can keep fees down as well. Because even though you may reduce your tax base, you may keep the taxes down, somewhere you're going to have to pick it up. So many counties will say that they're cutting taxes, they're not raising taxes, but then what they'll do is pass it off on the area in another form of fees. So in that respect, I don't think it's fair. But we have reserves, and I think within the next 3, maybe sooner, 3 to 5 years, we should be able to start bringing them down.
Okay, be quiet now, sir.
One of the city commission candidates kind of threw the ball back in the county's court as far as the pipeline to West Augustine goes, saying that the county's not accepting the fact that they have to. I asked this person that the city should maybe want to enforce their own utility. That's the county's point, but apparently that's not. It's still that sticking point.
It's still a sticking point, but here again, I think it's political. The county has been in the business of working with municipalities and working with utility companies for some time. This is new to the city. The fact is, the city has the service area, and those are the constituents that are in the county. So those are our constituents, and the city has the service area. One of the things that we offered was to buy the service area into the county, and we actually have the resources where we can actually start almost immediately putting the sewer system in. But what has happened is that the city has actually bonded out that service area in order to use the revenue for other kinds of things.
Okay.
So that prevents them from being able to sell it at what we consider to be a value price. $6 million totally overvalued for the utility service in West Augustine. So what we're doing is we'll continue to have a dialogue, and we'll continue to work with the city to ensure that the individuals in that area are provided the same services that many others in the county are provided. Again, these are constituents within the county, and a lot of folks don't understand that. But we have a responsibility. I have a responsibility as a commissioner to make sure that all of my constituents, regardless of their particular district, are taken care of. And I mean, it doesn't have anything to do with the color of folks or anything like that. They could be purple, they could be Martians. But I would still have the same responsibility, and I would still take on the initiative that we've been taking on. And that's why the county commission as a board, as a body, we've all made that same commitment, because we want to make sure all of our constituents are taken care of. That area, I mean, the thing is, we're looking at economic development. There are a lot of great things happening in the West Augustine area. And I'm not pointing fingers. All I can say is that the area has been neglected for years, and we're starting to see improvements. The folks are taking pride in the community. They established a CRA. They also have a nuisance ordinance that they've established over there, and as a result, some of the areas that you used to see on King Street are now being cleaned up. Some of the apartment areas over there are also being addressed, and the owners are being addressed, and people are being made to take responsibility for their properties. So that's happening, and people are starting to move forward, and they're starting to feel as though some things are really happening in the community. And we're going to do the same thing throughout the county, Hastings and wherever.
I was surprised to hear that the city had bonded out that service area, because how could they enter in good conscience to talk to the county to fill this project when that's the hang-up right there that's not easily overcome?
Well, here again, it's just, and I don't want to get into the politics of it, it's just that we'll continue to work with them so that we can do what's best for everyone. And we brought in Black and Beach and introduced them to the city, and that's who's working with them now in order to find the grant monies and these kinds of things. But we'll continue to look at block grants and whatever resources necessary in order to help folks.
The City Commission is now looking at a CRA feasibility study for Lincolnville, and that will take away some of that tax base for improvements in Lincolnville. So How do you feel about that? I mean, that's part of the incremental tax would go to the county as well as the city otherwise.
Right, I live in the city, so
I know.
I pay taxes in the city. I pay more in the city than I pay in the county. I think CRAs are good, and you know, as long as they're managed correctly and you have them pretty active and they can produce the results that you're looking for, I think it's good. But that incremental tax can really come back to bite you, and that's what's happening with the county right now with some of the other CRAs. You have to carry them until they actually get up to speed and start making money, if you will. If that's what's required in order to help Lincolnville to get up and running and improve those areas, and I would support it. But here again, I think that they should probably look at the county for some of the successes that we've had in Volcano Beach, and you know, Vivian Brown has been very, very good, along with other leaders in that community to make it work. Greg White working in West Augustine, he's the president of that CRA. So I think the city should probably, I would advise them to work with the county and say, you know, what are the best practices that you've used in order to make these work?
Well, as you know, you were there, they voted to spend a lot of money to have a survey, a feasibility survey study done. And I would think like you that they should have talked to the county first and just had a joint venture partnership or something to look at it. So as a county commissioner and the liaison with the city commission, are you going to suggest that to them?
I will. I talked to some of the city commissioners. Some I have a little bit more of a dialogue with than others. And you know, and I'm always reaching out. And I think that the only way that any of us are going to make it, not only in the county but also in our country, is working cooperatively together. And I think once we start working together and pulling our resources together, we'll all pull out of this. And I mean, that's the only way it's going to happen. But I'll always keep my door open. I mean, I talk to some of the commissioners, I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
And I make suggestions whenever we get together for breakfast or something.
I know, well, it just seemed to me like a lot of, and others too, like a lot of money to spend when you all have a
We have a
track
model.
record already.
We have a model there.
Yeah. Another question I had is on the Tourist Development Council.
Mhm.
And when you were going through all those changes, a lot of people weren't happy. And now we're seeing kind of the fruits of that labor coming forward, but we still haven't cracked that nut of the online .com travel companies selling cut rate hotels and only having to pay the bed tax on the cut rate.
Right. Well, as you know, I guess I was responsible to some extent because in the middle of a meeting, I said we need to restructure the Tourist Development Council, and I think we did a great job as far as being able to restructure it in a manner that we're getting the revenues now that's going back into the county that's helping to generate tourism and these kinds of things here. I've written letters, I've gone to Tallahassee, I go there quite a bit, talking to the legislators. I actually, as the Vice President of the Northeast Florida Regional Council, I, along with some of my fellow commissioners from Flagler County, Baker County, and other counties, have written letters to the legislators, almost begging them to get on board and help us to collect those dollars that we're missing, and we're missing out on. It could really be used in the county. But here again, it's political, and we can't make that decision at our level. But we'll continue to push. The legislative sessions will be coming up again, and I will be back in Tallahassee, and depending on who our legislators are after the elections, I will be knocking on their doors and again writing letters and trying to impress on them the importance of being able to capture those dollars and bring them back to the county.
I have a most difficult question I think it faces you folks is the ratio question. That is the ratio of industrial commercial space, land to residential. I believe it's about 11%.
It is.
And what I've heard is it should be 20 to 25%. How does one increase that ratio at the same time and continue to improve houses, approve houses? If you have like the Turnbill PUD, which died, but basically that was half and half. Half houses, half industrial, commercial. No way to increase the ratio if you keep doing it that way. How does one do that? It seems to be universal agreement. We need to expand the industrial commercial tax base. Yet the developers want to build houses because it's profitable and they perceive the demand. How do you do that? How does that?
It's very difficult to do that, and you're right. The Turnbull was a very good example of that, but I didn't like I didn't support it mainly because of the scheduling that they had there. And that's where I think that the commercial, needs to come, because we have so many residential homes that's already approved. However, I know that that's an industry that helps put people to work. Whenever I look at a residential development, I will get on the phone, and many times I'll call the realtors, the board of realtors. I'll call some of my friends that are real estate agents, and I'll ask them, what is the climate like? What kinds of houses are selling? Where are they selling? What the price points? Are the $150,000, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 houses selling? In order to try to balance whether or not I want to devalue some of the houses that are already there by putting more on inventory side, because I still think it's based on supply and demand. We have a pretty good supply of houses here now, but what I see happening is that supply is starting to decrease, which tells me that you need to start bringing up that supply again. But I think that we also need to encourage the developers to bring in that mixed use in order to bring in the commercial. Unfortunately, most of the commercial that we see is in the area of service area. So we need to focus more on the industrial and some of the clean energy, like the 2G Synergy, which is, power generators. That's going to create some high-paying jobs. But again, it's clean, and it's an industrial type business as well. We're going to be out beating the pavement and continuing to look for more companies like that. I think it's huge that we were able to bring 2G Synergy to St. Johns County, and that's the first company that they're actually going to open in this entire country, the entire United States, and they picked St. Johns County. There has to be a reason for it. It wasn't by accident. And I talked to the the CEO, and my wife and I drove out there last week at the facility to see how they're coming along. He says, Commissioner, you got great schools, you got a good quality of life, it's a great area, crime is very low here. So those quality of life issues are the kinds of things that are attracting people here. D.R. Horton, I talked to those individuals. They're moving their headquarters here because they like the quality of life, and most of those folks live in St. Johns County anyway. So we'll continue working on trying to balance that, offset that commercial and industrial with the residential, but it's a very delicate balance. And that's one of the things why, one of my campaign promises initially was smart growth, and I continue to focus on that.
Okay, Ms. Margaret, Mr. Winter?
I think all of my questions are being answered, so being asked and answered.
What we do at the end is you get a chance to say, as Margot and Ron have said, the last word, and if any issue we didn't bring up or anything you want to talk about, including sitting in the mud tonight.
No, I think everything is going well. In closing, I'll just basically say that, again, you're going to hear all kinds of things about my party affiliation. That's the way politics are. But again, I go back to the fact that my record speaks for itself. I have a very good record of doing exactly what I said I was going to do. My slogan for this year is promises made, promises kept, and I'm very, very proud to say that those are the things that I fulfill. It was based on smart growth, fiscal responsibility, and economic development. And as I've discussed in the last half an hour or so, I've achieved all of those. And I want to continue to grow on that base of what we've already done. We have a very good board of county commissioners, and I talk to folks on a regular basis, and they're always saying, I'm very proud to see that we have a board of county commissioners. You guys get along, and you get the job done, and it's very professional. So I'd like to continue to go for another term, fulfill the rest of the promises that I've made, which is to continue to work on building economic development, smart growth, and fiscal responsibility. I have a good track record, and I ask you to vote for me. My website is www.votekenbryan.com, and I look forward to serving the community again.
Thank you, sir.